It's a Tuesday night, it's 8 p.m, it's time for Super League Raw Weekly. On tonight's show, the Challenge Cup quarterfinal draw has been made. We'll look forward to those epic encounters. Banging or hanging returns with all the news, gossip and transfers. Speaking of which, why are the Leeds Rhinos players all of a sudden in demand in Australia? We'll be discussing that. And we'll also be checking in with little Ollie. What will he be saying this week? We will find out. And as rumours persist that the NRL are about to drop a £250 million cheque on Super League, we'll be discussing, is this the right decision for the game going forward? All this and much more. Let's start the show. This programme is proudly sponsored by BYD, the #1 electric vehicle in the world and the fastest growing brand in the UK car market. BYD and Super League Raw, building our dreams together. And the home of Super League Raw, the Bluebell in Warrington. Make this your pre- and post-game destination for the best food and drink in town. So good evening, welcome to Super League Raw on this Tuesday at 8 p.m. and we have a full house this evening. Good evening, gentlemen, Steph, Greg and Joel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Start. Hello, yeah, there you go, Dono. But anyway, there you go. Good to have everybody's company. We're going to start off with some phenomenal news, ladies and gentlemen. In phenomenal news, announced in the last hour, the grand total raised for young Alfie and his family has been announced, £12,742. I'll say that again, £12,742. And of course, Super League Raw front and centre in that fundraising. Gentlemen, a proud moment for us as a channel. He's off to watch Bayern Munich in May, and I'm sure there's plenty more trips planned with 12.5 grand plus. Incredible scenes. I'm over the moon, I'm sure you are.
Absolutely delighted, yeah. Absolutely delighted. What a great effort by everybody. So thank you to everybody who's contributed, and a big thanks to you, Dave, for getting all the things organised that we've done over the past 12 months, 18 months for little Alfie. Great job. Well done.
It's been amazing. Steph, good times?
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a pleasure to be a part of, and no more so than the night we had at the Bluebell recently. But that's a phenomenal amount of money, and that'll go a long way to making him tick off that wish list. And just a massive thank you to everyone who's contributed to it and sent all the messages in and all that kind of thing. It's been. When we do these kind of things, we don't set out to do it for any other reason other than to help people out, and to be able to do that. And I don't think any of us had thought we'd get to anywhere near that number. So it's a phenomenal effort, and I'm just blown away by it.
Absolutely. And Joel, this is what makes us Super League Raw and our community so special. It's not just about the rugby league and the friendships that are formed. It's also the good that we do within the rugby league community as well. That I think is quite groundbreaking, really, for a show the size of ours.
It is, isn't it? And it comes off the back of the mantra that all four of us live by, is that, good things come to good people, and it usually comes through good people. And I think that nothing more can be. It could come to better people than the Sales family.
I agree.
We've had the privilege of being in their company many times, and they are some of the most beautiful people you could imagine to ever meet. And the fact that our two worlds have collided through Super League Raw and Action for Alfie, I think that just speaks volumes. And as Steph so very rightly said, it's not out of any egotism, not out of any self-gain.
No.
It's out of pure love and respect for people. And the beautiful game of rugby league has done that for us. And to be a part of it and to help go ahead with that in the future years, hopefully, being able to bring players in to meet Alfie and see what's going on in the background behind of what they do on the field, I think is great. And I just hope nothing but the best for the whole family. And Alfie, you're always in our thoughts, buddy. And you go and enjoy every single penny.
Couldn't agree with you more. And we've got Glenn in the chat from Riley Gracie's gift. And he said, thanks for letting him be a part of it. Not at all, mate. Thank you and for your charity for getting involved in it. And, absolutely wonderful to have met you as part of that fundraising event in February. So thanks very much, Glenn. Great to have your company here this evening. Nicola Burtwood as well, as always, in there with the kisses. And, of course, all of the people in the chat patting each other on the back because, of course, it's been a collective effort. Thanks to everybody who donated. And none more so, of course, than the legend that was Matt Timms, who, of course, did so much as well for the cause for little Alfie. Right, let's talk some rugby league. We've got to go there. Let's go there, Steph. We'll start with the impeccable scenes, South Sydney against the Roosters. We've got to go there. Great moment for the game of rugby league that at the weekend. I'm sure everybody's seen it by now. Nonsense online in terms of it's only 213 people score. Doesn't matter. It's the most in NRL. Bottom line is let's not let the facts not spoil a good story. It's the most in that hemisphere, and the scenes were incredible, mate.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything quite like that for a try scoring. But no, it's there's people who've got a bit uppity about fans going on the pitch mid game and all that kind of thing. But I think it was for the right reasons, wasn't it? And we need more viral clips like that, to go around the world and show what our game offers. And it wasn't just the Rabbitohs fans, was it? Even the Roosters fans, was it, that were in the crowd and went on with him as well. So I even think, I may be wrong in this, but the Australian Prime Minister went to the pitch. So can't imagine Keir Starmer doing something like that.
No, well, he's got a lot of history with the Souths in terms
yes,
of
he has. I think he's member number 1, I think, of the Souths. So me and him have got that in common, with me being member number 1 of Super League Raw. So it was anything like that celebrates amazing athletes, and that's a phenomenal achievement to be the all-time NRL try scoring record holder. It was fantastic and great for the game.
I mean, Greg, the scenes, I think I've said this privately. It was Rocky IV. When they lifted him on the shoulder, and Rabbitohs and Roosters fans in unison, it's just what makes our sport what it is. It was just an incredible moment in sport, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, and it encapsulates the spirit of rugby league there and then. Both sets of fans celebrating a great achievement, celebrating the player and celebrating the sport. Yeah, I agree 100%. Just sums up what this great sport is. And the thing that made me laugh was that all week they were saying in the press and through the club, if he breaks the record, please don't come on the pitch. Sorry, what was that?
The good old days back at Wilderspool. Get on the field.
Happy days.
All the tie-ups. Hey, that's a bygone era. Give us your tie-ups and all that, isn't it? Hey, that's a bygone era. That is. The kids now, what are you on about? Yeah. The tie-ups kids, the tie-ups that they used to have to keep the socks from going down near their ankles. We used to collect them. We used to run on the pitch and ask for them. Never mind autographs. It was all about tie-ups on the legs. But anyway, that's by the by. And Joel, of course, as a bunny, Johnson has given us a lot of pleasure as Bunnies fans over the years. Shame they couldn't get the win. It looks as if it was just going to be an incredible comeback, and the writing was on the wall that it was all going to go right. It didn't quite go that way, but that aside, just a wonderful moment, mate.
It was something that I think you don't have to be a Bunnies fan to enjoy that moment. It was so much sweeter for us. I think for me being a Giants fan, it was just nice to be able to celebrate something. Something really. Yeah, honest. I've not felt joy like that in a long time. In fact, I was actually in the hospital waiting for my dad's discharge, and I was sat watching it on my phone, as you know, Dave, because I was messaging you throughout the game, and people kept coming into the side room my dad was in, asking if everything was okay, because I was up in raw. It was brilliant. I had, in fact, there's one of the doctors, Dr. Crossland, if you're watching, you said you was going to do, a Leeds Rhinos fan, was in watching it with me for a little bit. Maybe she shouldn't have been, I don't know, but there you go, she was. And yeah, it was great, because it's occasions like that when we see people going on the pitch, it's usually something that we try and discourage. Player welfare, you can understand, players don't want to get hurt, being trampled on by 800 million people. But I think on occasions like that, it must happen. It's got to happen, because, as it's been said, it creates these viral moments that rugby league needs, so very sorely needs. And because the NRL game is now being broadcast more towards the English fan base and audience, it helps bring some much needed inadvertent marketing to the game. And AJ has brought some wonderful tries over the years. And it looked like they were going to win. Bunnies were very close. They were playing well. And I think if that occasion hadn't happened, I think maybe the concentration levels would have been good, and maybe just possibly pipped it. But I think you can allow a loss on a day like that.
Absolutely. Well, as Nigel Bennett is rightly saying in the chat, the first kid on was a Roosters fan. Absolutely brilliant. Like I say, you wouldn't see that in any other sport. You just wouldn't. It was a celebration of a rugby league historic moment in Australia. It was wonderful to see. The pitch did empty as quick as it filled, which again I think was a great testament. Because in some sports, I'm just going to call it. Some sports you've had fans maybe digging up a bit of the turf as a memento, trying to take a bit of the goalpost. None of that nonsense. The fans went off the pitch. Lovely stuff. What a moment for the great game of rugby league. That was outstanding stuff. Right, let's talk Challenge Cup. Let's kick off with that as a debate. Devoid of close contest, I think we'd have to say that. The Wakey Leeds game, very nice indeed on the Friday night. And of course, why the Lee FC game wasn't chosen as the Saturday game, I think we'd all want to know who in their right mind decided that Huddersfield UlKR was the game to show as a spectacle on the Saturday. But there's this ongoing debate about the Challenge Cup and what we can do about it. Look, again, people voted with their feet in some quarters during the course of the weekend. And Danny Maguire, Steph, has come out this week and said he worries for the long-term viability of the Challenge Cup. It does get for those of us who, and I think all rugby league fans have got that in the heart that, the Challenge Cup is worth saving. But without people going through the turnstiles, I know all of us attending our games this weekend, but, the bottom line is the only way you're going to fight to save this competition is by showing up and getting through the turnstiles, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's got to be, we're a full-time professional sport now. And the days of championship sides and lower pulling off a cup shot, they're diminishing as the years go on, because the money's not there at that level of the game anymore. The gap's too big. And I think, Warrington's crowd was only 3,000 You know, so the days of, I know that was a switch fixture as well. It was originally planned to be at Goole, but even for Goole to switch that, they're not making any, because by the time Warrington have took their costs out of the Halliwell Jones and the stewards and everything for 3,000, they're not getting a split of anything there, Goole. So that argument's diminishing, as the years go on as well. So for me, it's got to have a revamp. It's got to be Super League only, and maybe a couple of teams by invite until we get to 16 Super League sides. And it's got to mean something. But even the crowd at Lee was only 5,500, and that was for an all Super League tie. And FC brought a decent crowd as well. They brought over 1,000. So it's got to be incorporated into season tickets somehow. And I know it's difficult because you might not get a home draw or you might get an away draw. But I think the clubs have got to take it on the chin if they do and include it in season tickets. I think that's the only way that it's going to get the numbers up. Just because of cost of living, if for us four, I know it was like 70, 80 quid for the Lee FC game. To add that on top of season ticket prices as well, you can see why some families can't afford that at this moment, and hence why it drops off a little bit. But I think it's got to be a Super League only competition, and maybe a couple of invites, and that's what I would do.
Well, we put our plan forward with regards to that. Greg, I was listening to the boys on the Final Hooter podcast, and of course it was Billy who was hosting that one. And Billy said the only shock of the round was Wakey against Leeds. Completely disagree with that. I would say Wakefield Trinity beating Leeds is a shock, would you?
Not given the way Wake have been playing, given that the results they had against Leeds last season. No, I don't think it's a shock at all. Wakefield are at home, so and that was a really good game. Wakefield did well to come back in that try that Pratt scored just before the Hooter was magnificent. But for me, given the caliber of opponent, that's a try of the round for me. We saw lots of good tries at Warrington, but that for me, given the time of the game and given the score of that time and the final score, what was a try of the round? But no, I don't think it was a shock. I think Leeds started well, and then I don't know, Wakey just fought the way back into it for whatever reason. So yeah, I don't think that's a shock at all. Shock results.
No, and I think a few people in the chat, Steph Makey, of course, great final. Ladies Tackle Talk as well. Really good episode of that available for you to download and listen to on your way into work over the coming days. If you've not discovered Super League Raw Ladies Tackle Talk, it's a great show. Well worth listening on Spotify and Apple to that. But talking about ticket prices, Joel, for this, that perhaps, clubs were being a bit greedy in how much they were charging. I mean, yes, by all means charge, but, if you're going to do, kids for a £5 for a Super League game or, £2 for a £10 for a Super League game, then surely a Challenge Cup round 16 is the optimum time to put on some decent discounts and try and get it looking full for the TV. Would you agree?
Absolutely, because I think certainly around 16, you'd imagine that certain clubs would have to take a bit of a hit, no matter how many numbers that they get in through the turn sales. So for you to charge the prices that they have been, I think in the current climate is a bit unfair. I totally understand that they've got to, everything, inflation goes up and stuff, but you've also got to think about the brand of rugby that's on the field around 16. You see how Gould played, did very well. However, got beat quite convincingly. So you can't expect people to pay lots of money when you kind of expect certain scorelines. All right, the Wakey Leeds game was a good game. Enjoyed that. You look at our game against KR, blowout, complete utter blowout. You just can't expect that kind of ticket price. And I think as well that the fact that when it comes to the Challenge Cup, because it is knockout, you can charge slightly less money because you're going to get a slightly more expansive game of rugby because they've got it's win at all costs. So if you're going to charge, for example, a tenner to get in, and that's very low, you are going to have a lot more people that are willing to go and pay that extra money on top of the season ticket. If you're going to charge them prices, then let your season ticket holders go in for now and charge the people who aren't season ticket holders that price. But I don't even agree with that either. I think it should be fair all round. The price of the Challenge Cup should be lower because the clubs will always take a hit regardless.
Yeah, it's a big quandary. There's no doubt about it. But one thing's for certain, we always try and be glass half full. What a fantastic quarterfinal lineup we've got. St Helens, they're going to be taking on the Catalans Dragons. Wakefield Trinity up against Wigan Warriors. That's going to be a game. Wire, of course, taking on Lee. No quarter will be given there. And Hull KR are up against the York Knights. A lot of narratives there, boys, that we can talk through with regards to those games. Catalans going up against, I think it's weekend the 11th and 12th, so about 3 weeks out from this. And I think that it's fair to say that Saints, Steph, will probably be still carrying a lot of injuries come that game. So an opportunity perhaps for Joel Tompkins' Catalans going into that game against Saints in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, definitely. And, Catalans have been okay, the past few years. They put in a really good shift against Lee. And it's obviously Saints' injuries, but they've got the I think the big difference for me is that Saints have got the better squad overall. And so even they have got those injuries, there's still players that can come in and do a job for them. They'll take a lot of comfort from that win over in Perpignan. As well, I don't think it'll be as much as that this time around, but who knows? Because we're still 3-4 weeks away, aren't we, before the quarterfinals are played? So Saints may get a few of those players back. But yeah, it's a really interesting one. But I'm sure Saints will be over the moon that it's a home tie and not a third trip to the south of France in as many weeks, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, also, I do apologise. I think some people are seeing filters tonight because we're being called sexy and all sorts in the chat. So I think we must have filters on our screen somewhere. But thank you very much, Ryan. Very kind of you. We're all of a certain age and vintage here. So if you want to, be throwing those kind of things out, then by all means do so. And in 2027, rumor has it, Greg is free on Valentine's Day. But that's it. We'll go to the game. Greg, Wakefield against Wigan. Look, Wakey at home, I think Wakey is slowly but surely starting to look as if they might be getting into a groove, getting something like, I think Sinfield's performances have been very good. The pack seems to be improving. We know they've got strike on the edges. Wigan, again, doing it tough. Fields should be back by the time the quarterfinal comes around, but they're certainly still going to be without Warner and French. That's not going to be easy for Wigan at Wakefield.
No, it's not. Not by a long chalk. Wakey will, again, as Saints will be delighted to be at home. So will Wakey. They will be absolutely delighted that they've got a home draw because it's not an easy place to go to, Wakefield. It's still quite a tight ground. It gets a great atmosphere there. And I think, I think that could be a very, very interesting game. And I think Wigan will not take this game lightly. I think they've probably learnt the lesson from Hull last season. When everybody expects them to be a whole team that was struggling and they got knocked out. And that's not to say Wakefield are struggling by any stretch of the imagination. They were pretty good against Warrington and could have won it. Could have won that game against Warrington had they got the bounce of the ball and things not going against them in that second half. So yeah, I think that will be an absolutely fantastic game.
It will. And then Joel, KR. Welcome your Knights. Retribution, maybe. It'll be on KR's wish list for that one. But I think York. Yes, they'll get big scores, maybe put on them in a few games. But I think I've been really impressed with York. I have been impressed with them. I think they've assembled a very, very good side that KR can ill afford to underestimate in a few weeks' time.
Well, by the way, a league game, I think this is one of the other games to watch of the round, purely just for the entertainment factor of, is it going to be round 2 of what happened earlier on? Can York back it up and do it again? It'd be incredible scenes if they did. York have done something very special this year. They've just got the balance just right. We talked pre-season, how's York going to get on? We genuinely didn't have a clue. We said it was either going to be a masterstroke or a total flop. And, so far it has been a great masterstroke. And, they've got the experience and the youth, just playing some really great rugby. And I'm personally really looking forward to watching York week in, week out. And I'm nervous to play them because we're playing them pretty soon. And, you look off how things are going and they look like they can be there or thereabouts this season. I know it's a long season. We're very early on, but they're really starting as they mean to go on.
Absolutely. And Nige Bennett, always first to get the beers in on a Thursday night. Well done, Nige. By all accounts, the queues are very reasonable this evening at the bar. But thank you very much indeed for Nige for getting in there early and getting the first ale of the evening in. Well done, Nige. Legend. Well played, sir. Very well played. And then we come, of course, to Warrington against Lee. Back-to-back Super League and Challenge Cup games. The Bluebell will be rubbing their hands together, I'm sure, because we always get a good crowd in for those ones. It'll be great to see Lee fans, 2 weeks running down at the Bluebell. These games, Steph, for me, they don't need any build-up. Lee Warrington games now are becoming, I think, for both sets of supporters, a real highlight of the season, mate.
Yeah, they certainly are, and they've had a bit of spice to them, haven't they? They've had a bit of drama, they've had controversy. It's becoming a bit of a derby, and people forget that. Yeah, we're in the Wigan Borough, but I think Warrington's still our closest team. I think it's only 8 miles away between the two stadiums. So yeah, it is becoming a bit of a derby, and obviously they threw in the play 3 times in the Magic. Now we've got 4 times in the Challenge Cup, and then we had the pre-season friendly. So 2 teams that are very accustomed, or will be very accustomed, to playing each other as the season goes on.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, I've always thought that Phil is a great clairvoyant. By all accounts, at Craven Park, when York go, you can't see anything than a blowout. I never realised that he was such a far-out ranged weather forecaster as well. I didn't expect wind in April in Hull, surely. To be quite surprised at that, Phil, I would have thought. But anyway.
It's windy in Hull all year round, mate.
True. It might be a bit more blowy that day, maybe, is what Phil's saying. Who knows? But Greg, like I say...
He's been unfair. I think I've got a chance in this one. I know round 1 was tough, but
yeah,
I can't see York being a blowout, to be honest with you.
No, I think he's really slowing it down a little bit. Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more. Reggie, I mean, look, this is bound to be a great fixture. I mean, obviously, from a Lee perspective, last year it was Warrington who knocked them out in the semi-final of the Challenge Cup. They'll be looking to get one back on the wire here, won't they? And do the same to Warrington this time round.
Oh, it's definitely a revenge mission for the Lathers, yeah, definitely. And I think this and the Wakey Wigan game are very, very tight calls. I'm not confident going into this game by any stretch of the imagination, as I'm sure Lee fans aren't. It'll be a typical blood and guts and thunder cup tie, I've got no doubt. I'm sure injuries will play a part. Lee will be hoping to get some bodies back. Warrington, a few injury blows this week. We'll be hoping they don't lose any more bodies before that tie. So yeah, looking forward to it. And with trepidation. But yeah, should be a great game.
And Joel, if there was ever a game that was going to get you in your car and maybe make the pilgrimage over the hill, mate, Lee against Wire at the Wire in the Challenge Cup, will a certain Huddersfield Giant be making the pilgrimage across for a bit of Challenge Cup Rugby League?
You may see a not so Huddersfield Giant make the pilgrimage over. If I keep losing weight, I couldn't call myself a giant much more. But yeah, I think that will be a very good game to go to. So you may well see one of us down there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Look, we'll look forward to those games. It was worth just having a quick look at the draw. I think as they look really good, handsome ties. I think the quarterfinals should deliver a really good weekend of rugby league. Really looking forward to that. Right, let's get into the news. Here we go. Banging or hanging? Yes, let's just quickly go around the grounds and do a little bit of the news. And Bradford, I was in the Kurt Haggerty press conference earlier. And yeah, some Leeds Rhinos making the way over. That's very kind of Leeds, isn't it? The old enemy loaning out some play. I mean, brotherhood in Super League, outstanding. Ned McCormack, Riley Lum, Presley Cassell are going to Huddersfield from Bradford, which is fantastic. So that's a good effort, isn't it? So is that right? So Huddersfield, going to Bradford, aren't they, from Leeds? They're going to Leeds, and
going to Giants.
From Leeds. Mixed up. They're going to the Giants, and Trey Lalacio of Wakey is going to Bradford. Like I say, the Yorkshire team showing some brotherly love towards each other. We'll start with you, from your perspective as a Giant. Got to be banging on it, young Ned. Good play, young Ned. Ellie on the wings and Presley. Happy with that, Joel?
Oh, yeah, ecstatic. Alex asked me if we could send them back, uninjured. And I did say to him, I can make you 99 promises, but that ain't one. So I'm hoping though that it's going to really help us. We've pretty much sung their praises for quite some time at Super League Well since they've been playing, and I'm quite surprised that they're letting them come. Though it's very much needed. And when we play Bradford on Friday, let's just see how much of an impact they make. It'd be wonderful if they can play all three.
Well, I think Ned's a player. I've seen Ned many a time in reserve grade. Ned McCormack's a player. We know Riley Lum knows where the try line is. And President Cassell, a lot of people surprised that, he's not making his name for Leeds this year. But with Cameron Smith's form, I'm not surprised. I think Cameron's in such great form. He's not getting in over Cameron anytime soon at this moment in time. Reggie, Trey Lacio, of course, played for Wake in the third round of the Challenge Cup, but he'll be making his Super League debut, not for Wake yet, which will be quite interesting. 23 years of age, of course, front rower, came in from Redcliffe, played a bit of reserve grade in the Queensland Cup. Be interesting to see how he goes for the Bulls on Friday night.
Yeah. I think it's a good move all around. It gives a player time on the pitch. It gives Bulls some extra firepower. I'll be looking at that with interest. And I think that the loan moves to the Giants, I think is banging as well. I think it gives the players time on the pitch. With the injuries that we've had this season all across the board now, getting those players out there, getting some fitness in the legs, and hopefully recalling them if any more injuries do strike. I think it's good business all around. It helps the Giants, helps Bradford, certainly helps those players. So yeah, I think it's banging all around.
Yeah, no, he's banging. And what's also banging, Steph, is that it is confirmed Jaden Nikarima returns for the visit of the Giants. Sorry about that, Joel, but great to see Nikarima back on the field. I posed the question to Kurt Eggers, we might include that in Captain's Run, that, he just brings something different to the Bradford Bulls attack, doesn't he? Nikarima, he's explosive, isn't he?
Well, yeah, and he was signed as the starting six, wasn't he, for them? Very, very, very good player, and I think he'll add a lot to that Bradford side that's been very competitive without him. So that's going to give them an extra dimension, unfortunately, for Huddersfield. But those three players coming in will hopefully give the Giants a bit of a boost. So that could be a very good game. That it could be a very close contest. So one to watch out for that one this week.
Looking forward to it immensely. Joel Ryan Carr came out. He was filthy at the weekend, saying that the refereeing was diabolical. He didn't hold his words. Have the referees become a bit too reliant on video technology? Because for me, some of the forward passes we've seen in the Challenge Cup fourth round were, dearie me, they were, well, blatant.
That has been branded around quite a bit this year. I've got to say, and this isn't sour grapes, I've noticed that when we were playing Hull KR, there were quite a few forward passes. There were in a lot of other games. I think, yes, technology is wonderful, but they certainly have become too reliant. I think the original referees, before we had any video, would have technically been far better because they had no other help other than them and the linesman. And I think the linesman's job have almost become redundant. The only time that the linesmen are any good for is when somebody's out in touch and they lift the flag. The rest of the time, they're unfortunately getting a very easy wage. How many times over the past 10 years, at least, have the fans screamed at linesmen? They're just not seeing things. That they're as important, if not more important, than the referee in some occasions. And if that isn't getting addressed soon, then the sport becomes a bit of a joke because you can't play by the absolute rules, and then you're getting certain score lines that happen that shouldn't have happened. Certain wins where some teams have got 2 points that they could have missed out on a playoff spot or a final, and that's the basis of a linesman not doing his job properly. I don't think it's always the referees that the issue. I think the linesmen need just as much criticism.
Well, all I'd say is that I think the Sevo one in the Wakefield game, it was that far forward. He was scoring it at the MKM this weekend, wasn't I mean, it was just like, wow, where are you getting that one from? Unbelievable. But actually, I think it's only right and appropriate, Greg, that, you know, yes, some of the referees this weekend have been given a real tonky, but Tara Jones in the Warrington one.
Yeah. I was just going to say that, Dave, that Tara Jones, refereeing the Warrington Girl game, was excellent. She missed a few things, but they wouldn't register on the Jack Smithometer by any stretch of the imagination.
3 forward passes in the game, mate.
She did. She made, like I say, she missed a few things, but she controlled the game well. And the thing was, she commanded respect from the players as well. So, you know, fair play to Tara. Yeah, she missed a couple of things, but
I think
overall,
we're getting the gist. She might have missed a couple of things.
Yeah, I'm just, you know.
But she got a lot right.
She got more right than she got wrong.
Absolutely.
Let's put it
I think it was a banging performance. I think she did really well.
Yeah.
Reece Martin out for a month with a broken foot. That's bad news for KR, Steph.
Yeah, it is, and he's done well since coming back into the side, hasn't he? He's been very consistent for them, especially with his goal kicking. So yeah, it's a shame for him, but one of those injuries that's not that's not a result of pitches or tackling techniques, is it? That it's just an unfortunate one for Reece, but it doesn't sound too bad. If he's going to be back in 4 weeks, that's not a bad one, is it? So. At his age, it might do him a bit of good to have a couple of weeks off, especially with the travelling that KR have had to do and stuff like that. That might be a bit of a blessing for Reece, and he'll kick on stronger towards the end of the season.
You won't be getting his autograph at Leeds with comments like that, dear God. Happy days. Joel, Liam Harris, this is a bit of a blow for York. Liam Harris is going to be out, but I think the good news is after Ngannou was back, for their game against Keighley. So it's probably going to be a Danny Richardson stroke Ngannou half-back combination that go up against Wigan. But Liam, for me, has been growing. I thought he got off to a bit of a slow start. It's a bit of a shame that his Super League season is going to be interrupted. Not quite sure how long that's going to be, but by all accounts, it's going to be a few weeks at least.
Yeah, it's a real shame for him. But once again, we go back to what we said earlier. It's a masterstroke from York. Having Ngannou, which I think is a wonderful talent, really think he's got a very bright future in the game. And then we know what Richardson's like at 70. He's really good. He can play the 6 or 7, can Danny, and he's got that great kicking game on him. I think that's going to be no skin off their nose losing Harris, I think, for a few weeks. Of course, he's better to be on the field, but I don't think they're going to be that much worse off not having him there either, because they've got bags of riches in certain parts of the squad that other clubs just don't have.
Yeah, absolutely. Greg, no surprise. Toff Sipley out for 8 weeks, knee and calf. Why they left him on, God only knows. For those who didn't watch the Warrington game, Toff Sipley went down about 7 minutes from the end of the first half, got up holding his knee, was left on the field for another 5 minutes and then hobbled off. We were screaming for a substitution. It never happened. 8 weeks out, mate.
Yeah, I don't understand, as I said to you at the time, Dave, I don't understand why they just hooked him off. The game was over by that point, even at half-time. Warrington were in no danger. Hook him off as soon as you get a tweak in a game like that. Bring the player off, get him treatment. Now, I think, is it his calf and his knee? So, obviously they're trying to carry the knee injury has done something to his calf. On the bright side, it could open up an opportunity to Max Wood, who was absolutely phenomenal. At the weekend, people say he was only playing against Gull, which is disrespectful to Gull for a start. But he looked absolutely on fire on Saturday, and I'd love to see him now given a chance in Sipley's absence.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Max Wood. And Luke Thomas as well didn't let anybody down for Warrington. Their opportunity certainly is not good. As Rebecca Frey gets herself to the bar. Well done, Rebecca. She's really looking forward to having Lee twice at the Halliwell Jones Stadium. Good to see you, Rebecca, as always. Hope to see you in the Bluebell before kickoff this weekend. And of course, if you're a Castleford Tigers fan and you're travelling to Warrington this coming Saturday, get yourself to the Bluebell 2 hours before kickoff for the best pre-match entertainment. Come and have a drink. The Ghoul Vikings supporters did. We got a bus full on Saturday and we had a great crack with them. Let me tell you now, those Ghoul Vikings fans, they would absolutely tell you it's well worth coming to the Bluebell. Great beer, great occasion. We had a right good giggle. Exactly what Rugby League is all about. They enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. We all enjoyed it. And can I say a quick hello to Jax. Yes, Jax or Jake. Is it Jake's? Jake's might be Jake's. I think it might be Jax and Joey. The two J's, two young lads. One of them had an exceptional mullet. I'll have to say, I even congratulated him on it. He was only a young lad, probably about 11 or 12. I mean, he put some proper work into this mullet. Girl Vikings fan, and I have to say the Girl Vikings merchandise is very, very nice. But yeah, tell you what a mullet. Brad Fashion, he cut his hair. He cut his hair if he saw the mullet on that kid, because he just couldn't compete. It's beautiful, beautiful mullet, absolutely outstanding. To all the Girl fans, thank you very much indeed for coming and joining us. It was an absolute privilege to have you. Before we get to Little All, let's just have a quick talk about Leeds Rhinos. I'll put it in the trailer for tonight's show. Why Leeds? I'm scratching my head here. Look, I'm scratching it there for the purposes of the podcast. I get a proper scratching there. Why Leeds? I mean, they lost Gannon, McDonald's going, Newman's going, now Oledsky's going. It seems to be Leeds that is being hammered by Perth. I'm not sure. I know that. I think is it Craig Harris? Craig Harrison's the agent of Oledsky, but I'm not sure if he represents the other three or not. I couldn't find that out. And there's nothing to say that he does or he doesn't. But I just find it really, really odd that it's Leeds that is getting pillaged for players from Perth. Steph, what's going on? I mean, if you're a Leeds fan, you're waiting for Brodie Croft to put his underwear in a case and go off to us.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't surprise me if Brad Arthur's giving some, nods to the people over there and saying how good these players are, and he's seen them day in day out, isn't he? So everybody in that community talks, don't they? And he's obviously speaking to people over there and saying how good these players are. So, I think that could have be a factor in it. Whether there's anything with Brad, because I don't know the Perth coach yet, have they? Or have they? No. So I mean, who knows? Brad Arthur could be.
Where's Meninga going? Actually, where's Meninga gone? No, Meninga left his Australian job, didn't he? He's Perth, isn't he?
He could be.
He's gone to Perth, yeah. Yeah,
it's Meninga that's gone Perth. But yeah, I mean, look, Joe, I mean, look, I don't want to be disrespectful to Mikulaj. I mean, I thought Mikulaj Oledsky 4 years ago was right up there in stats with Wormsley at his peak, and the two of them were having a right good ding dong. The last few years, Oledsky's he's not been all, he's not been, dare I say it, NRL. I mean, when this got announced today, I had to take a second look. Your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I was quite surprised, and the reason being because any British boys that have gone over to the NRL, forwards wise, have tended to be absolutely ginormous. Your Sam Burgess, Moz, James Graham, list goes on. Jimmy Peter, JP didn't go. But yeah, ginormous players who are extremely talented, that have been showing their worth in Super League for many, many years. Now, Mikulaj, obviously, we know he's a cracking player. I don't know if he's spent enough time in Super League at the very top level of his game, and maybe be making the NRL travel. You want to call it? He's gone. Yeah, going to NRL. I think he could do with maybe just proving himself a little bit more first. To the likes of Will Price, I know he's been in the Super League far less, but he went a bit too early to the NRL and came back. I just hate that for Oledsky that he would go over, not really crack it in the NRL straight away, and then he unfortunately loses his playing days and his ability that he could get to by trying to get some money early. But having said that, he is a great talent, and maybe he'll do just fine. But if they're gonna have him, they need to put him in the right type of setup with the right players around him.
I mean, look, if you're gonna take British players across into the NRL, players that have played with each other, as those three have, in terms of synergies and in terms of squad building and squad togetherness, it's probably not a bad idea. But there's a lot of people over the years who've said, would this player make it in the NRL? Will that player make it in the NRL? Well, we've got three there McDonald, Newman, Aledzki going over to Perth at the inception of Perth, there's going to be no hiding place. We're going to know pretty quickly if they can step up.
Yeah, and obviously these guys at Perth have seen something in them, clearly seen something in them. Whether it is Brad Arthur giving them the nod, whether they do share an agent. And, you know, if you get an opportunity like this, you're not going to turn it down. Maybe it's the way they work together. You know, Aledzki, I would probably think is going to be more of a kind of a mobile kind of forward as opposed to, you know, your Morleys who are big, massive forwards who could punch a hole in the defence. He's more your mobile forward, the new kind of brand of forward, if you like, that Super League have been developing over the years. So, you know, Matty Nicholson's gone over there. He's kind of the same build, different position. He's a second row, not a prop, but he's done okay. Injuries permitting. Morgan Smithies has done okay as well.
Morgan Smithies is ripping it. I think Smithies has been excellent.
Yeah. So, you know, he could very well go out there and he could do a Smithies, he could do a Nicholson. So, you know, and from a personal point of view, I hope they do. I hope they show what us Poms have got.
Yeah, I mean, look, do you know what? Let's, again, in a glass half full kind of way, it gives Alex Sharp the perfect reason to bring his teddy bear out the loft, put a Rhino shirt on it, call it the Perth Bear, and he can go to bed with it again. He'll be delighted, Alex. He'll be over the moon to get his teddy bear back out the loft. Good God bless his little cotton socks. Didn't quite work, did it? You know, Jack Sinfield Trinity. There was no real teddy bear connection, but you can get away with it with the Perth Bears. He's over the moon. He's Alex Sharp, absolutely over the moon. But anyway, we digress. Steph, in terms of what Wigan have done, you know, in terms of long-term contract, because if Aledzki's going, if Newman's going, if McDonald's, they're looking at Ensemble. Of course they're looking at Ensemble. But the fact that Wigan have tied him down to a long-term contract, that possibly is the masterstroke where they're looking at going, no, we're not paying him out that contract yet. We'll wait 3 or 4 years. So that, for me, you know, even though it's not helped Wigan from a salary cap perspective, and Warrington run the same with you and Irwin, it would appear that, you know, the crown jewels of a club, it's the right tactic to maybe deter NRL coming and taking these players.
Yeah, but I mean, Adletski was, I think he had an NRL clause in his contract, I think, because he just signed one recently, didn't he, with Leeds? Right. So I think if the NRL come, regardless of how many years you've signed up for, it's kind of irrelevant. Even if you've got not got an NRL clause in, it'll still get ripped up, and you know they'll take the money. I think what it does do is protect against rival clubs in Super League coming for them. Because I don't think anyone in Super League could afford to pay out a 4-year contract to another player. Whereas if the NRL really wanted him, they would. But just going on Adletski, I think it could suit him. I think he's got a better chance than Newman, a miles better chance. I think his build lends itself to an NRL forward, an NRL prop. He's very lean and big. So I think it'll go really well for Mick. I could see him being a big success in the NRL.
Well, we're going to find out, but I just think it's really interesting that it's Leeds. You know, it just seems to be all Leeds players that are being plucked, and it's, you know, if I'm a Leeds Rhinos fan, I'm like, why us? You know, it's just like all the focus is on Leeds. Like I said, the Brad Arthur point that you made, maybe, but. Yeah, very, very interesting indeed. But yeah, the removals to Australia is going to be busy out of Leeds. I'm sure all the removal firms are over the moon. They're getting plenty of work there to get the families over to us in time. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting discussion to have. Right, let's get the little man out. Here he comes.
What Would Oliver Say is proudly sponsored by South Coast Lane Carpets. From shag pile to vinyl, nylon to wool, you are guaranteed to find the right fit for your home. Contact them today and tell them Oliver sent you. This is What Would Oliver Say at Super League Raw. I just want to say, it's been a bit of a shocker from the BBC for their Challenge Cup coverage. Feels like they think rugby league fans have nothing to do than watch EastEnders. Rugby league isn't like other sports though, where fans only watch their own team. The fans are passionate and want to watch every game, and only having Wakefield and Leeds was really disappointing for the fans. Also, I noticed Ryan Hampshire played for the Hull KR reserves this week, and I'd actually forgotten he was there. It's mad that a player like him doesn't have a club at the moment. With all the injuries around Super League, I'd expect someone to pick him up and we'll probably see him back in the first team action pretty soon. What do you think, Super League Raw?
Yes, little all with his merch, outstanding. Unfortunately, his mum was that giddy that she was videoing him opening up the parcel, but then forgot to record it. But I'm led to believe his little joy overflowed when he opened up the first ever what would Oliver say t-shirt. He wore that with pride. Good to see him in it, young man. Absolutely outstanding. Ryan Hampshire, good shout that, Greg. Ryan Hampshire. And you're right, when you consider Hampshire, the likes of York have come up to lose, Bradford, even your team, Joel, who are looking for, quality personnel. Ryan's a good player. It's a good shout, Greg, Ryan Hampshire. Should he be playing still in Super League?
It is. And firstly, when do I get my What Would Ollie Say t-shirt? That's the first thing I've got to say. I say, yeah, Ryan Hampshire. Yeah, I'm with Ollie. I'd forgotten about him as well. But a decent player on his day. Injury prone. That's curtailed his career a little bit. But yeah, you would have thought that maybe he's with KR building up his fitness, and maybe KR will then do as Leeds have done in the near future and loan him out somewhere, either in the Championship or the Super League, to give him some game time. But great shout from Oliver. Great shout.
Yeah, he knows his beans, that boy. He knows his own brand from his Heinz. No doubt about that. Joel, he's upset. He's all upset about the weekend, not being able to watch too many games at the Rugby League. And like I say, we were all surprised what the FC League wasn't on.
Yeah, I think BBC, when Ollie mentioned that, I was like, yeah, I think BBC have kind of maybe given up the ghost with Rugby League. I think they're now just showing that the duties that they've got, because they're contracted into showing X amount of games. I think the problem we've got in England is that too many broadcasting companies have the fingers in too many different pies, and I think too many of them have got the hand in the Rugby League pie. So what's happening is that, unfortunately, the quality is getting diluted, and the good games that should be on are getting missed. So what we need to either do is have one coverage from one broadcaster covering all competitions of Rugby League, or it be sent across to a more of a streaming service across different platforms like your Netflixes and different stuff like that. That's a different conversation, of course. But yeah, missing out games like that where it's a quality game. I think people would be happy to have not seen Huddersfield OKR on TV. That doesn't deserve any airtime. I know it was on the Sportsman, I get that, but that doesn't deserve any airtime. But other games do. So I think that the broadcasting needs to get sorted out, and that would massively help with the marketing of Rugby League in England as well.
There you go, Ollie's in the chat. He's loving his t-shirt. There he is, thanking us for it. Not at all, young man. Thank you for your dedication and for your exceptional questioning every single week. You're an absolute pivotal part of the show, young man. Absolute legend that you are. Have the BBC just lost interest in Rugby League for you, Steph? Is it a minimum attempt from the Beeb? Are you comfortable with their position in the sport?
I think it's the minimum viable product for the BBC, isn't it? It's just as low a cost as they can get it. Relegating to iPlayer is disgraceful when you've got reruns of Antiques Roadshow on BBC Two, and they put in that live sport on an iPlayer. I think it's disgusting, especially when it's taxpayer funded as well. The BBC should be doing more than anybody when they're getting free money off all of us lot to promote Rugby League. So yeah, I think it's really, really poor. I know they do the radio and stuff, and they've got other stuff, but the amount of money they put into other sports, they wouldn't put athletics on the red button, would they? I think that says it all. In terms of how many people want to watch that. So yeah, I think it's really poor. But
they'd have been better off I mean, imagine Challenge Cup Rugby League on Channel 4.
Hmm.
You know, the way they did the Super League. And
Yeah.
I think whoever made that decision, and I know that Derek came out and said that he was pro. I'd love to know what his views are now in terms of the BBC having got that contract after the event. Derek was very, very, when we spoke to him, he was like, no, he's the national broadcaster. We need what. But look what they've done to it. I mean, for me personally, Channel 4, their coverage for a terrestrial channel, I thought was exceptional.
Fantastic.
Life, passion, people who wanted to be there. It just worked. It just worked. Challenge Cup on Channel 4 would have been much better, wouldn't it?
But you can't use BBC as a national broadcaster when they're hiding it behind a red button and not advertising it.
Yeah.
It's not like someone's flicking like we used to when we only had 4 channels, and you'd eventually fall onto that one because there was only 3 other options. Them days are long gone. It's not a national broadcaster when it's hid behind a red button. You can say it is, if you want and do whatever, but it's just not. But it's a BBC's defence. I think the whole FC and league game was originally scheduled to be played on the Friday when they first announced it, and then it got changed to the Saturday at the request of Hull FC. So that may have been a reason why they didn't choose that game initially. But for the multi-millions of pounds the BBC get from every single household in this country, I think the coverage of rugby league has been exceptional previously, but has gone really poor now.
Tell you what,
the thing with the BBC is it's under the Royal Charter. The Challenge Cup final is one of the so-called crown jewels. The FA Cup final, World Cup, European Championships, Olympics. So they have a duty under the Royal Charter to show at least the Challenge Cup final live. And that's why I think they probably struggle to get another terrestrial broadcaster, because they would only get the highlights to the Challenge Cup final, not the actual game itself. So that's the issue with that.
Money talks, mate. Money talks.
Well, he's saying the Royal Charter.
Any contract, I don't care if it's in the Royal Charter, the Magna Carta, I don't give a monkeys. Money will talk.
Yeah, somebody put in the chat, I can't remember who it was, that there's a lot of dislike for rugby league at the BBC. There's a lot of dislike throughout the media world. People who are stuck in the past, people who were not alive when, the workers split from the rugby union to form their own league because they needed broken time payments. These people are just carrying on the kind of the argument for the fathers and the forefathers that rugby league is an inferior sport. And for me, they need to grow up and embrace what is a fantastic sport. Now, we had rugby union for 3 hours, 6 hours back to back on ITV and on BBC. 6 hours. World Cup games don't get that much coverage unless it's the final.
Yeah, and it's not just that. You've got Mike Makey in there going about golf, the amount of coverage.
Yeah.
I mean, tennis has got its own channel. I mean, I used to play tennis to a decent standard as a kid, but I'm sorry, a tennis channel. Come on. I mean, dearie me. The world's gone nuts, mate. The world has gone nuts. But yeah. At least we got
rugby league world champions.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree with you more. But no, very, very, very poor. But yeah, well done to all. Fantastic questioning, as always, from all. Now, I'm not apologising for this. Look, Super League Raw, we do have a principal sponsor who, is BYD, and this season, and they've launched a new car. And what a car it is as well. Now, if you can think of a car the size of a Cougar, it's equivalent to that. Got far more spec, in terms of standard versus a Qashqai and a Cougar. It looks the part. It's cheaper in a monthly payment kind of way. £100 a month cheaper. Look at this for a car. Super League Raw back with BYD, one of our principal sponsors for 2026, and we've been invited down to one of the Pentagon showrooms today to discuss a brand new product launch that is coming out. Well, it's actually out now, which is absolutely brilliant here at Warrington. And with us again is Lee James. You remember Lee from our launch video. Lee, thanks for having us back. Appreciate it.
No problem.
And you're very excited about this thing behind us. Tell us what it is and what people can look forward to with this car.
So it's the new Sea-Lion 5 plug-in hybrid UDMI, new to the BYD range, starting from $29,995, under £30,000 for a plug-in vehicle.
Absolutely incredible. And you know, for those who, it's hard when you watch things like this on the TV, so it's probably the size of a Cougar. So if you think of a Ford Cougar, Nissan Qashqai, not a million miles off, it's that type of size of vehicle. And to be under 30 grand, it's a lot of kit, isn't it?
Great value.
Tell us what type of features are on this car as standard.
God, have you got all week?
Go for it.
It starts off with you got your full leather interior, still got your big screen, touch screen display. You come with the NFC compatibility as well to be able to open the car and lock the car with your phone. Obviously, alloy wheels all standard. Boot space is actually bigger than the CLU, which has got a slightly smaller boot. It's got a bigger boot capacity in the smaller vehicle. Electric range starting from 43 miles on the plug-in, combined then up over 600 miles with the petrol as well. So all that is standard for less than £30,000.
Incredible, absolutely incredible, wonderful stuff. And when did this come out?
It came out last weekend on Valentine's Day. So
Fantastic.
Yes, yep.
Wonderful stuff. I mean, like I say, these cars, these BYD cars, it's no wonder it's the best-selling car currently in the UK. It's they're going from strength to strength, and yeah, very, very impressed with it. Nice styling, it looks the part on the road as well. What other products are coming down the line?
Oh God, we got this is another big list. The next one after this is the Atto 3 Evo. That comes out hopefully towards the end of April. And then we've got the Shark potentially coming in the summer, which is a pickup truck. And even there's rumours of a 7-seat vehicle coming to the range as well. So trying to cater for everybody, really.
Well, what we'll do is we'll put a little bit of a musical montage together in terms of this vehicle that you can watch in a few moments' time. But like I say, less than 30 grand. And the good news is, Lee, of course, you're the point of contact for BYD Pentagon Ford. People come through you. The good news is free delivery nationwide. So the telephone number for Lee is going to be on the screen as well. Give him a call. He'll make sure, as a Super League Raw member and as a watcher, you'll get the best possible deal in the UK. And like I say, they'll deliver it to your door.
Wherever you want me to go, I'll take it to you and bring it to your door.
Absolutely wonderful. So yeah, we'll do that montage as always. Lee, thanks for inviting us down. We'll keep coming back for more product launches as we go through the year. But as always, on behalf of Super League Raw, thanks for the support, mate. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, thank you.
All the best. Looking thing, that is it.
Oh,
not a bad looking thing at all. So you've got Lee's details there. He'll deliver it to your door. Incredible spec. Got one myself, not that particular one, but I'll tell you what a lovely motor that is. And like I say, size of a Qashqai stroke a Cougar, but if you pay monthly for your cars, it'll be 100 quid cheaper than those, and it's got more spec. It's just nonsense. It's mad. You've got to go and have a look at them. It's madness. Very affordable, very nice, cheaper than traditional brands. So well and without compromising on quality. I've got to say that as well. So
can I just say on that, Dave, the comfort on them are second to none. I know a couple of people who bought them. Spoke to Lee a couple of times myself recently, and I don't think there's anything out there in that range that can beat that. The comfort for them, if you're like me and got a bad back, that's the one you want.
Absolutely. Wonderful stuff. So there you go. You've got Lee's details. They were on the screen. Get in touch with us if you didn't get that. If you're listening to the podcast, you can get hold of Lee. Lee has guaranteed the best price in the UK and he'll deliver it to your door. You can't get any fairer than that, folks. So don't apologise for it because they are sponsoring us this year. We will keep a really good, close relationship with BYD and also the Pentagon division throughout the year for sponsoring us and doing so much for us. So thank you very much indeed to everybody at BYD and to also the Pentagon Group as well, who allowed us to go down and do the filming there and are also very supportive of us this year here at Super League Raw as well. Right, let's get back into rugby league debate. NRL. The NRL, I mean, there's growing rumours. They really are now starting to get a pace. I'm led to believe there's a meeting due next week. And I think once we get the other side of that meeting, more will probably come out in terms of the structure of what the NRL are proposing. There are conflicting stories floating around with regards to it. But I think the smart money at the moment, appears to be a deal in the region of £250 million for a 5-year deal, which will be 50 million a season, which when you look at what the Sky one is at the moment, is it about 20 mil, 19?
21 million.
Yeah, just over that. So it's over double, well over double that, in terms. Now, again, does that include the TV deal or not? Again, we're not sure. Some people are saying no, the TV deal will be on top. Others are saying no, it's 250 million, that's your lot. The NRL will take the pot in terms of anything that they do. And again, the fine print, of course, is to come out. But Andy's in the chat saying 2 million a club. I'm hearing 3. So that's interesting. Like I said, there's a lot of varying reports, but 3 million seems to be the number that's been bandied about for the clubs. Greg, we'll start with you. I don't see how this can be turned down.
No. I think I've heard between 2 and 3 million. So that's me sitting on the fence there. But no, when you consider that Toulouse and York got 650 grand this year as part of the TV deal as the teams that were promoted, and the others got around 1.3 million. If they're getting between 2 and 3 million each, that's doubling the money, trebling the money. I can't see how the clubs can turn this down. As Vlandis said, people are putting money into the clubs just to keep them afloat. This will be not just to keep them afloat, but to ensure the sport grows and that the teams can grow, and that the product grows. So, to be honest, I think this. If I am owners of Super League clubs, I will be snapping the NRL's hands off. I know there's a lot of argument about it going back to winter rugby because of this deal, but as I said last week, that would not bother me in the slightest for the reasons I gave last week.
I think, well, again, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors here.
Yeah.
Those rumours over winter rugby are completely and utterly. I've heard nothing concrete on that. What we are actually hearing is that it's more likely that they'll want them to run concurrently side by side. Because it'll start on the same weekend. It will end at a grand final weekend, which again opens up doors in terms of taking both Super. What we did see in Vegas, Steph, is that the NRL wants Super League when they take it on the road. They love what KR and Leeds brought to Vegas and Warrington and Wigan the year before. So if they do go to Dubai, if they go to other parts of the world, they're going to want Super League. And it makes it easier if the 2 seasons are running concurrent on things like that. That's what I'm hearing, and of course, it probably will make it easier from a World Club Challenge perspective as well.
Yeah, I think rules as well is a big one. To align both competitions so we're all playing the same game. That'd be a good starting point, and helping with the international bits as well and the confusions on that. But yeah, it's obviously the devil's in the detail, isn't it? With any kind of deal and takeover, and I'm sure there'll be, clubs wanting assurances. I think the way it's got to be done for me is minimum standards. We don't want to go to a 10-team comp. That would be suicidal, I think, for Super League. More to the fact that if you get rid of 4 teams, that's 4 teams that will probably go bust and go into the depths of rugby league amateurism. So why would you want to do that? NRL's got 18 clubs, is it? I think at the moment. So I think we really need to build on this good start we've had to the 14-team comp. But I think there needs to be, likewise, the clubs should get assurances. I think the clubs have to meet minimum standards, and I think attendances. Apologies to Joel, but I think attendances has got to be a key factor in it in how the sport looks on TV. I think that's a big one. But also your ground, what your ground looks like, what work you're doing in the community, and it's pretty much the IMG stuff, the good stuff from IMG, to keep your license. And as long as clubs maintain that standard, why would you want to drop teams out of it?
Well, again, I'm hearing none of that, Steph. I'm hearing none of that. They're not stipulating the teams.
No, I don't think they are. But I think that's one of the things that's going about, isn't it? There's one of the things. But the only reason I can foresee chairman voting for a 10-team comp is the ones that are, your bigger clubs who are losing £2 million a season at the moment, wanting a bigger share of the pie and doing it for selfish reasons. Now, that would be purely financial, selfish purposes, and it wouldn't be for the benefit of the game. Because, like I said, losing 4 clubs out of Super League now would be massive. Look at Bradford, who were getting 10,000 attendances. So, so you're going to get rid of basically, or you're going to alienate, if you did that, 30,000 fans. That would be suicidal.
Well, mate, we're talking about someone that hasn't. My understanding is the NRL are not dictating the amount numbers of teams. That is not what they're doing. They have not stipulated that. I mean, and again, there's rumours. Is it 15 teams, 14 teams? I'm not hearing any of this 10-team nonsense. That has not been rumoured anywhere. Yeah, that was mentioned a while back last season somewhere through, but I think that even Melendez has got to look at what Bradford have brought to the competition, what York currently, and there's viable business propositions there in terms of moving those areas forward. So you don't break what isn't broken. That seems to be working. Which brings us to you, Joel, because in the last 24, 48 hours, the amount of people coming for Huddersfield is unbelievable in terms of Huddersfield not being there next year. A lot of people are voicing their opinions now that the time has come, that enough is enough where Huddersfield is concerned and that this shouldn't be in Super League next year. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, very unhappy about it. Very unhappy. People keep saying we're riding on the coattails of the birthplace of Rugby League. If it wasn't for Huddersfield, you wouldn't have Rugby League. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. There's nobody that would, in the right mind, who likes Rugby League, would want to have even the lower league clubs out of the competition. It's stupid. Now, I certainly don't want to see Huddersfield out. I don't want to see Castleford out. I don't want to see Salford out. I don't want to see any of these clubs go out and do wrong. If Melendez is going to come in and help, how can he help these clubs to gain the traction where you can get fandom again? You look at Huddersfield back in 2013 when we won the League Leader Shield. We did average 8,000 per game. The reason why we haven't done is because we've not had the right structures above to put the right things in place for the things on the field. There's a lot more behind it than just, right, this coach needs to go, or that person needs to go, or that club needs to go. I think it's very easy for people to be pointing fingers and they don't realise that there's 3 fingers pointing back. There's a lot of things that goes on in the sport, and for them just to say, yeah, Huddersfield needs to go. They said it about Salford last year. I don't care whether you've got 3 fans or 300,000 fans. You've still got people who have been dedicated into these clubs for a very long time, and you've got to look at the history of clubs. And okay, I understand where people are coming.
Joel, in the intro, I mean, obviously last week you were filthy. This week you're making these points. We pre-recorded the Craig Lingard Championship show. That's coming out tomorrow at 7:00. And in that show, we speak about NRL and from a championship perspective, how does from a championship coach perspective, does he feel about what's currently being touted? And you're talking there about the fans, and me, mate. I love you. I love Huddersfield. I love coming down there, but I've got to be balanced. In the show that I did with Craig this morning, he's talking about let's talk about the Batley Club. They've got 70, 80-year-old men doing the field, living at the stadium for the love of the club. They're not in Super League. So that argument of whether you've got 3 fans or 3,000 or whatever, well, there's Batley fans there that are doing the pitch, that are doing everything to keep their club afloat, and they're never going to be in Super League ever. So that can't be the argument, mate. I've got to be fair on that. You can't. This for me is about, since 2013, with the exception of 2022, Huddersfield have not grown. That's the problem. And I don't want to see Huddersfield go. I'm not saying that, but looking at it, there is a growing wave. And when you start hearing the press prominent, I mean, I've not watched it, but I saw something on Facebook pop up with Kyle Amor and Danny Maguire. I've not watched it, but Danny Maguire saying that he's got concerns for the Challenge Cup and he's got concerns for Huddersfield. The grading system that London will probably overtake Huddersfield. So unless they go to 15, Huddersfield will be out unless they improve significantly between now and the end of the season. This is what Huddersfield is now up against. And I can imagine how you're feeling about that. I can imagine how the Cowbell Army are feeling about that. I'd be feeling exactly the same way. But it does, I for the first time, probably in the last 72 hours, I'm sitting here going, I've got real concerns for Huddersfield.
Well, can I come back on you on that?
Of course you can, mate.
Because I don't want it to come across that it's just my personal opinions about the club that I support and love.
Mm-hmm.
No. Let me come back on you. I don't want my points to be downtrodden by people in the comments either. So let me come back on you on something, Dave. We've been back into the Championship on 2 occasions and we've come back.
Yeah.
These other clubs have never been in Super League because they've never put the groundwork in the first place.
Yeah.
If you're going to go off what you're saying there, then yes, we are going to downtrod the league and the clubs that are in it. What I'm saying is the clubs that are in now, the 14-team clubs, need to be helped to be brought across. Now, the clubs like Batley then, absolutely they should have their shot at being in Super League, but help them get to that point. If you're going to put in all this money, and let's say that the rumours were true about the 10 teams, because I have seen that. So let's say that the 10, like you shake your head, Dave, but it's been put in the media.
Yeah, that was rumoured, but what I'm hearing at the minute, mate, is that the appetite is that it will probably remain 14.
Right, and that's great. But just say it was the 10-team thing. That's something that Super League would have to fight back at and say, no deal. Because if that happens, it's suicide for the whole league because you can't get growth. Now, if it stays at 14, he can then help clubs like Huddersfield, not just think, right, we're going to kick them out because they don't hit the mark. How can we help them stay in the league, grow, and then get your teams like your Batleys to come in? Because if that's the case, Super League's going to grow, and the NRL's going to grow. But if you're putting stoppers on clubs and making them come out because they don't hit these targets right now, then that's helping no one or nothing. That's not helping the league.
You've got to be given the opportunity, I think, Joe. If this is going to happen now, you've got to look at the 14 clubs that are currently there. You've got to give them these 5 years. If it's a 5-year deal, then give them the 5 years, but say to clubs like Huddersfield, you're in for 5 years, but as a minimum, you need to grow your fan base so you're getting regular attendances of 7,500 plus, because that's it's all to do with what you're absolutely spot on what you're saying, Joel. But if you in 5 years' time haven't got to 7,500, it's not that big of a jump. You were getting crowds of 5,000 normally in Super League, aren't you? So we're only talking about an extra 2,500. And if you've got an extra £1 million coming in to put into your marketing budget, you should be able to get that and have a squad that's capable of doing that as well.
And that's what I agree with. But my problem is saying we should be kicked out next year.
No, absolutely not.
That's what I take umbrage with.
But again, this is where it's all coming through. You haven't got a stadium next year.
Well,
as we sit here now, Huddersfield have no stadium in 2027.
Okay.
And then the flip side to that is that we're hearing that if you have got one, it's possibly Jewsbury. As we sit here now.
Okay.
Now again, unless you know something different, that's what we're hearing. Now that's a problem.
I'm not going to say on live TV what I may or may not know right now.
Fair enough.
But
So, well, I don't want you to, but like I say, genuinely, look, I'm only gauging what's being heard, the feelings, and I think when you're getting prominent figures in rugby league coming out like they have in the last 72 hours, pretty much putting the microscope on Huddersfield and their viability, that makes me nervous for you. And I'm not, and you know, I'm not coming from any place of, I'm not trying to get clickbait, and I'm not trying to go during. That's not my character, mate. I'm just merely commenting on my feeling, and my feeling is at the minute is that pressure appears to be being applied to brand Huddersfield Giants and their viability for 2027. That seems to have coincided with the momentum of this NRL on the wind, and that makes me really nervous. Hence the reason why I asked you the question.
and what I will say on that is that if this happens, and in the 5 years we don't make it how we should make it, then I totally agree we shouldn't be in the league.
The thing is, as well, what's also being touted about is that, and there's probably a lot of weight in this as well, is that the Northern Hemisphere would adopt the Southern Hemisphere model of it be a feeder clubs. That's basically what will happen. So, like we're seeing at the moment with York and Newcastle, you know, the second tier would become feeder clubs, and the argument for that is that if you actually go and look, the attendances are pretty reasonable for second tier in Australia. And when you look at some of the attendance figures that you get in Championship Rugby League, some of them less than 500, you know, their argument is it's still a club. So, you know, for example, I'm just going to pick Halifax as a club. You know, Halifax Panthers still exist as a club. So if you're a passionate Halifax Panthers fan and, you know, you like to wear the Halifax Panthers shirt with your town logo on it and crest, it's still in existence. It's just under the guise of it is a feeder club to the parent club that is in Super League, which actually then allows what York are doing at the moment in terms of Newcastle and York, in terms of moving players around. And, you know, again, you would hope that the brand of rugby league in that tier slightly improves because it's been managed by the parent club. That's also being rumoured at the minute, but also the caveat of that if within that model, like a Ken, somebody with money suddenly goes to, like Matt Ellis has done, like Derek has done, etc., goes into that club and says, right, we want to crack at Super League, we want to be the next franchise, we want to be the next Perth Bears, the next PNG, they have the opportunity to do that, but they've got to.
It's got to be that way now, Dave. And this is someone who's come up as a championship club and only been in Super League for 6 seasons in its entire history. But Lee did it the right way. You know, I mean, they had the backer there. They had a multimillionaire backer who's willing to put that money into the club. Realistically, now in the Championship, there's only one club that's capable of going into Super League, and that's London because of the investments they've got. Look at the amount of Featherstone going bust. Halifax have had to be resurrected. Salford are now in that situation and a Phoenix. But in 5 years, 3, 4, 5 years time, if Salford come back and they've got somebody who's willing to invest £10 million over the next few seasons, then yeah, if they want to be the next franchise, that's fine. But I was completely against franchising 10 years ago, but times have changed so much. The days of being able to be promoted into Super League and be able to wing it for a season are just gone. We're seeing the gulf in the Challenge Cup games. If we want a viable sport now, we've got to have the investment come in, but it's got to be a closed drawbridge, unfortunately. And that kills me to say it as someone who has spent the majority of my life as a rugby league fan in the Championship. But the financial situation of these clubs is not strong enough, and it's to the detriment. Nobody wants another Salford situation again. We don't want that. And hopefully, if this investment comes in from the NRL, that will mitigate that a hell of a lot of happening ever again. But unfortunately, for the clubs that aren't there at the moment, we've got to be a bit selfish for the game now and say there's no money, there's no big money people in any of the clubs apart from London. So let's promote London. Let's make it a 15-team comp, and then let's go forward with that and have a buy round or whatever it is each week.
Yeah, well, and that is it. I mean, it would be a buy round. So that again is what they're saying. If it did go to 15, like I said, there's two camps. It goes to 15 with London, or it remains 14. And what I've been saying about Huddersfield. Greg, you've been very quiet, mate. Your thoughts?
I'm just thinking about what they've been said. I agree with. I see entirely where Joel was coming from. I was there in '95 when there were rumours of mergers to form a Super League, and Warrington and Widnes would merge, and teams would disappear. Those things cannot be happening.
Cheshire Rugby League.
Yeah, Cheshire Wildcats. No, thank you. And that didn't happen. The power of the fans saw that through. I agree completely with Huddersfield, with Joel about Huddersfield, but I also agree with Steph that if Huddersfield are to stay in, and I think you agreed with this, Joel, that given a time frame to improve. And what gets me with Huddersfield, and I don't know whether Joel you can explain this, is they can pack that stadium for a football game for a team that's not top tier football, and yet they can pack that or almost fill that stadium. Why can't you do that with rugby league? There should be an appetite for rugby league in Huddersfield. It's the birthplace of rugby league, as you rightly say.
Yeah.
What is it, and why aren't you tapping into that? As have 2,500 people there on Sunday, you may as well have given free tickets away, because you wouldn't have lost much more money to give free tickets away. In fact, you might have made more money on merchandise, on selling coffee, tea, beers. So what is it that's going on in Huddersfield? And this is a genuine question. I'm not mocking in any way, shape, or form. You know me better than that, Joel. Why is it that we can almost fill that stadium for a football game, and yet when football's not being played in a completely different time of year, those people aren't coming down to see what rugby league is all about? Is there an answer to that?
The general consensus of fans of sport in Huddersfield is that you look at the price of the season ticket for the Huddersfield town is astronomical for League One. It's a very much for a football town, that is for certain, and they can't afford to have two season tickets. Now, I know the season ticket Huddersfield is for the Giants is extremely cheap, but the thing is that they basically pick in one sport and go into the other. Many years ago, I remember my dad telling me there used to be 30,000 people down at the Giants, Little Far Town. 30,000. So it's not that the appetite's not there, but the brand of rugby hasn't been good on the field for many, many years. And that is unfortunately the reason why the numbers have gone down. And it's why it hurts me so much. Because
But on that, mate, but on that, and this is where Lee benefited, and this is where KR benefited.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to go and watch a team that are losing every week. And this is why I take my hat off to you, I take my hat off to Greg, I take my hat off to all the Cowbell Army fans that no matter what, they go and they stand and they support. You are the real supporters of the club. That is the true measure of a rugby league supporter. Is no matter whether it's rain or shine, you're there. But we also know that there are fair weather fans. And, and I will say it, KR will accept they have some fair weather fans. They have fair weather fans. There's been people on them premises now that have been there, up, down, Championship, back up to Super League, and are having a bath and are loving it. But there's bandwagon jumpers as well. The bandwagon jumpers are not the lifeblood. Great for revenue. They're not the lifeblood. They're not the lifeblood of a club. The true lifeblood of any club are those fans that no matter what, they're going to go. They're going to go back to that example I gave about that 17-year-old who's doing this. He doesn't care what the product is on that pitch. His passion is for his club, and no matter what happens, he's going to be there at Batley every week. And it's the same as you at the Huddersfield Giants and other people as well. So that is absolutely paramount in all of this discussion. We all feel for those hardcore Huddersfield fans, but over the years, for whatever reason, clearly there's been some sort of disconnect. Something has happened at Huddersfield, and it's like as I think Steph said it to me, might be in a conversation, might be on here or not, but once you lose supporters, it's hard to get them back. Yeah, because they start spending the money somewhere else. They take different hobbies and different things elsewhere. And it's a real conundrum. But if you were to go down, and again, this feeder piece probably wouldn't fit, and Ken wouldn't want that, and you wouldn't want that, and nobody would want that. But unfortunately, if the NRL do come in, we've probably seen the last of KR and Lee, who have been able to go down to the Championship, get into winning streaks, bring people back and watch a team that is winning, then transfer that into the Super League with a Super League squad and push on. Those times may be a thing of the past under this model.
The one thing there, Dave, is yes, winning is a big part of it. And as Adrian Lamb always says, winning takes care of everything. But the three things there of Lee, Wakefield, and Hull KR that have all got in common, they've all engaged with those fans. They've created a stadium that's vibrant and exciting to go to. So it's not all about what's on the pitch, it's about what's off the pitch. You've got Craven Street, you've got the stuff that Wakefield are doing with the new stand and the show before the games and all that kind of stuff. And offering really good, membership deals and all that kind of thing. So yeah, winning helps massively. It's probably 75% of it, but you've also got to tap into that 25% of, when you do go through a rough patch, that people are still committed and they bought into the model of the club or whatever. And I just think for Huddersfield, the timing's awful with all this happening at the minute, because I'd have probably liked to have seen Huddersfield go down a couple of seasons ago and rebuild and come back again and follow that model, because I think that would have really benefited. But my opinion is the same, that we've got the 14 teams we've got now. If we're going to invest, then it would be unfair to take clubs away without giving them a chance. They've got to have that opportunity to better themselves, but they've got to come with a caveat of, and they've got to sign up to, yes, you can be part of the club, but you need to meet these minimum standards. And if you don't do that, and if Huddersfield are still getting 4,000, 5,000 crowds in 3 years' time after being given that opportunity, then unfortunately for me, they don't deserve the place in there. But that's on Huddersfield then to do that, and it's in their hands.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question on this?
Just before you come back, look, Phil's in the chat saying that when Rovers went and lost £1 million game, they had 8,000 people in the stadium. Yeah, but Phil, when you're in the National League in 2003 to 2006, you had less than 2,000, mate. That's my point. Yeah. You're in the Championship you're in the Championship there for a year, and yeah, you average 7,000. Brilliant. Had you been in the Championship for 5 years, that's my point. And in fairness to Joel, it's important that we're credible in what we say. It's too easy to say KR had 8,000 when they played the £1 million game. It's too easy. Let's get into the real stats. When you're in second division, mate, you had less than 2. You had less than 2,000 fans at Craven Park. Now, you might have been one of them. And if you were, I'd tip my hat to you, mate. I'd tip my hat to you. You managed to get just under 3,000 when you went up into the first division. So if we're going to have a debate, let's be credible. It's too easy to throw 8,000 at Joel in this discussion.
Can I? I've been wanting to ask this question to you now for a while.
Go for it.
And I don't want it to be a Huddersfield show, but we've talked about it. So
this is a great debate, mate. This is what we wanted weekly to be about this year. Quality debate. We'll do captain's run. We'll do round 5 on captain's run. This has been a brilliant, respectful debate, and that's what Super League Raw Weekly is all about, mate. So you crack on, pal. It's not about Huddersfield. It's about debate. Crack on.
We played at Jewsbury last season.
Yeah.
Okay. And the whole rugby league world that week was saying just how incredible the atmosphere was at Huddersfield playing at Jewsbury. Now, here's my question.
Yeah.
If what you're hearing is correct, that we were going to Jewsbury. Now, bearing in mind, Jewsbury is in Kirklees, Huddersfield, right? If we was to be at Jewsbury, and you're then seeing on the telly, forget the Challenge Cup crowd. There's normal crowds that we're talking about. There's 4,000s, there's 5,000s. Is the look on the TV then not the question of Huddersfield don't have any fans? Is it more of it looks better on TV, therefore we're going to show it more because they have a better atmosphere because they're in a smaller stadium? Because let's talk about the elephant in the room. Everyone talks about our fan base, and it always coincides with the fact that we have the biggest stadium in the league almost, and we're crowded out by the stadium. If that stadium's taken out the equation, and we're in a stadium that is more adept to our fan base, and because of the atmosphere, therein lies more fans. Bear with me, I've got a point on that. Then there's more atmosphere builds help for the players, because Tui made a very good point. He said we have a very tricky situation at Huddersfield because our fans are almost like they're playing away all the time, even at home, because it's hard to get on top of the players. It's hard to get on top of the referees in such a massive stadium. At Jewsbury, the opposite. And we were playing Wigan, and we nearly beat them that day. And I think that had a massive to do with it. The other point is a friend of mine who is a massive, you met him before, massive football fan, used to be a footballer himself. He loves rugby league. He had a season ticket at Huddersfield, and then he stopped it because he says there's just not the atmosphere. He says, I go to the game because I love the game, but I also love the atmosphere. And if the atmosphere is not there, I can't enjoy the rugby league that I want to pay for. If I'm paying for something, yeah, I'm paying for what's on the field, but I'm also paying for what's not on the field. And I think if we took the stadium out of it and say we was at Jewsbury, we was at Halifax, one of these smaller stadiums, and built off that and had us 4,000 fans roaring, making loads of noise, then does the product on the field with the efforts of the club become better and Volandis and all this? And then when we get it bigger, if we did say by Jewsbury or by wherever, could we build a stadium as the fan base increases? Because I think that might be the only way. And if then, after the short period of time where we're given, say it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years to improve, if we haven't improved, yeah, kick us out. But until then, put us in a stadium that's fitting for our fans, and let's see what people then don't say about us.
Mate, the Jewsbury one, I think from an atmosphere, clearly it was a major success, and it came across that way. So I think in terms of atmosphere that day, without doubt, that came across. I think what people would throw back at you is that Jewsbury is not a York Knight stadium. Jewsbury is not a Wakefield stadium. And again, the optics of Jewsbury, and as unfair as this is, and it is unfair, you're in a horrible position. You haven't got your own ground. You've got to go and find somewhere. You see, Jewsbury, it doesn't look like it's going to be the Shea because, again, they're being resistant. You know, we know that the council at Huddersfield have been resistant for your new stadium. We know that it's not for the want of trying. You know, Ken has been an absolute hero in terms of his efforts in trying to get the Giants a new home and do exactly what you've said. But again, it's what the rest of Super League want in this situation. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's going to be a very interesting couple of months, this, in terms of what happens. Because, like I say, if it was fan experience, again, it's what you want. If you want your fan experience to be a great atmosphere, Jewsbury ticks the box. If you want it to be modern facilities,
it doesn't meet the standard, doesn't meet IMG gradings.
Well, I get that, but I'm trying to. But from one thing we
But
can't.
that can be changed.
One thing that we can't take away is atmospherically, Jewsbury worked from an atmosphere perspective for generating an atmosphere. But that's all. It can't offer anything else. The facilities aren't good enough. It's not a destination.
Well, that can be changed.
It can be, but again, then what you've got to do is you've got to invest in Jewsbury, not Huddersfield. All the money that you do to change Jewsbury is benefiting Jewsbury. That's
well,
the
if that's the case, then the club better be liquidated then, because it's not going to. If it goes down, Huddersfield might go out of existence because we're struggling in Super League. We're going to struggle in the league below.
Does that not then?
If we're going down that trend, we are going to lose the Huddersfield Giants.
Sorry, Joel. Does that not then fit in with the thing you were talking about before, though, Dave? And you know, in the interesting debate, that if these lesser clubs become feeder clubs like the Queensland Cup, like the New South Wales Cup teams in Australia, and let's face it, you know, the likes of Wigan and other teams in Super League have benefited from those teams as well. If Huddersfield is investing in Jewsbury and Jewsbury is a feeder club for Huddersfield, does that not benefit both parties all the way around?
Well, Huddersfield haven't got a stadium.
But if they invest in the Jewsbury Stadium,
so why are you saying that
Jewsbury stay there as well as a kind of a dual ownership? But Huddersfield invest, bring it up to standard. You know, surely that would benefit Jewsbury in the long term. I don't know.
So basically, well, that's it. I mean, Joel, and you have got the right to answer this because you are a passionate Huddersfield Giants fan. And you're there through thick and thin. Does that work? Does Huddersfield Giants move to Jewsbury?
I think it would be a wonderful idea. And I think it's not just a great idea for Huddersfield Giants, but I think it's a great idea for Jewsbury Rams. I think they would definitely benefit from it. Reggie, you're 100% right. If Jewsbury want to be in Super League, why not? Let's build it together as a club.
Because they've not Jewsbury haven't got the backer, mate.
No.
Well,
Right,
if they become a feed club,
but if they get
stadium, that's so Huddersfield remain the Super League club. Jewsbury remain the Jewsbury aren't coming into Super League as long that ain't happening.
Well, okay, but what I'm saying is that if you've got a backer like Ken who has money behind him that can put the things in place to Jewsbury to make it Super League standard, to make the facilities that they need Super League standard, then that's up to Batley Jewsbury whether they want to try and make up the difference to become a Super League club or not. Whether they do or don't, the fact is it benefits them because they've been a far better stadium, far better pitch, and eventually it would be slightly bigger. And if they want to then try and become a Super League, that's their problem because that's a separate club. But it would definitely benefit both.
Joel, just to think, I know I would be going on quite a while about it, but just as a point on that, as someone who's concerned for Huddersfield at the moment, in terms of I don't want to see Huddersfield go out of Super League or anything like that. We saw what happened with Salford when Salford moved outside of their town, right? So do you really think that Huddersfield could grow their fan base being in Jewsbury? Honestly.
Possibly. And I'm saying that because there's a lot of Huddersfield Giant fans that don't live in Huddersfield that go to a lot of the games that I know about. There's a lot.
I'm sure there was a lot of Salford fans though that don't live in Salford, mate. But
yeah,
when you take the identity out of a club, when you take them out of a, we've seen it. This is and it's not a negative thing, this mate at all. I want there to be a solution for Huddersfield, but I want it to be the right one. And I would worry massively that if you take Huddersfield, and I think Ken's got the same reservations in terms of taking Huddersfield out of Huddersfield, but especially a club that's trying to increase the fan base and the identity of that club. If you then go to Jewsbury, I can't see any good business model that would say that would increase the attendances for Huddersfield.
Well, what other option have we got? The council keeps rejecting all of our bids to put anything anywhere.
I'm not saying you have got another option, mate. I know it's a hard one. I don't want. I'm just.
The only thing with Jewsbury is that Jewsbury's in Kirklees as is Huddersfield. So that's the only thing is you could say that this becomes a Kirklees club.
Yeah, Eccles is in Salford, mate.
Right, but Salford was a different problem at all. That was leadership. That was club who let finances go down. If that hadn't have happened, Salford would have carried on and have been a great club, and people wouldn't give two hoots.
No, it's not that, mate. It's not that. Salford were playing in a grand final, mate. They had success, and they still couldn't get the crowds coming.
Yeah, but that's not the point you were making. The point you were making was that Salford went down as a club. And it sounded like you were saying it based off the location. It wasn't that at all.
No. Salford went down because of poor management financially.
That's what I just said. Yeah, but people wouldn't have been bothered because they'd have carried on.
Yeah,
we'd have a different problem somewhere else.
Yeah, but their attendances has always been poor because they moved away from the Willows, which was in the centre of Salford, to the other side of the M60 in Eccles, and people just lost interest and wouldn't go. And this is the thing in terms of. You've got the problem where your attendances are quite low at the moment. It's going to make Huddersfield's job even double harder to get your attendances to grow outside of your community than it is now.
Yeah, but if we don't go to a ground like that, we'll have nowhere to go at all, and then we'll be completely stuffed.
And I just think, in the interest of we've gone around it, and you know what if nothing else, what we've shown as part of this conversation is how to debate with respect. You know, and there's been, I'm sorry to say, there's been a couple of comments in the chat that is just, it's not respectful. It's not. It's goading, it's pointy, it's not. What we've demonstrated is the ability to talk about a topic that I think is going to be quite prevalent over the course of the next 6 months in terms of what does the new Super League look like, and clubs like Huddersfield, I think are going to be as we've already seen in the last 72 hours, there's going to be questions and there's going to be answers like Joel's tried to give. And I know that Ken will fight his corner. And, to be a fly on the wall in those meetings is what I would say. But if nothing else, what we've demonstrated again today is that we can come together as a four and we can debate with respect on big issues in the game of rugby league. And we'll have a pint and we'll remain mates and we won't fall out. And, I think that's been a really, really good quality debate. And this is what my vision really for weekly going forward is, that we can get into these juicy debates and we can have a difference of opinion, because that's fine. And we listen. And I've listened to what Joel's got to say. I've listened to Greg. I've listened to Steph. We're not going to find the solution on this panel. We wish those people well. And I think, because of our, respect for Joel and Greg and the people that we've met from Huddersfield, the last thing that Super League Raw want is for Huddersfield as a club to not be a viable proposition for Super League. We want them to be in Super League. It is the birthplace of rugby league. It has got that connotation, and we know that they are capable of getting people through the turnstiles. But unfortunately, over the last 10 years or so, for whatever reason, some of those fans have walked away. And even the most partisan of crowd walked away at the weekend. And that's a big problem. So the optics of Huddersfield at the moment, unfortunately, is coming into light. And I just hope that they can find a good argument and they remain in there. We all hope that. So we hope we've enjoyed that. That's been probably one of the best debates I think we've had in the history of Super League Raw, gentlemen. I think that's been a really good chat. So there you go. Another episode of Super League Raw Weekly comes to a close. It may even rumble on in the after show. If you remember the after show party, just use the social links. You can get yourselves in there. One of us or all of us might pop our head through the door on that one as well. Just to run you through what you've got to look forward to in the next few days. And of course, tomorrow you have got Championship Rugby League with myself and Craig Lingard every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. I'm back because Super League is back. We are back with the Captain's Run. It returns this Thursday at 6 p.m. If you're on the way to the game between Wigan and York, you can listen on Spotify and Apple from 6 p.m. But if you're not at that game and you want to watch it, you can watch it on YouTube and we'll take you right up to the Sky production. So do indeed join that. And of course, Instant Reaction will be back because it's Super League. That will go throughout the weekend as well. On behalf of all of us, we hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a great debate. It's been some great chats. NRL, are they going to put 250 mil on the table? Will Huddersfield be there? Will they not? I don't know. You don't know. None of us know. All we do know, though, is that we've got another round of Super League on the way this week. Let the Gladiators be the heroes. I'm looking forward to it. Join us for the Captain's Run, 6 p.m. on Thursday. From all of us to you, have a good evening. Bye for now.